where we last left off in the campaign, the group had journeyed into the maze of Medusa, also known as the Archive to them, in search for Mez's father, the chosen engineer. After meeting the master craftsman Zotza, a giant snake with arms for teeth. Anyway, deep within the dungeon, following the ping of locate creature casted by Mare, they had been surrounded by feathered, cloaked men wearing long beaked masks. 16 in fact. And as they so as combat began, over the course, they were dispatched fairly quickly, with only a number of them escaping in that time. But, other than that, I'm not sure if anything of note happened during the combat. Pretty much, they pretty much just well done. Oh yeah, upon looting the bodies of the Oku, which they became known as, some lip balm, some gems, and what else was found?
Magic blueberries.
Strange little squishy blueberries, which was found by Thyson under the control of Ryan for the duration of the session, with Mare being controlled by Brandon for the first portion. However, upon encountering the 16 Oku, the group decided that pretty much they were unprepared for what seemed to lay ahead, and they retreated their way out of the maze. On the way, encountering a strange, larger-than-life celestial man, his head resembling the half moon that was in the sky of the first moon, because the sky has 5 moons, to those that don't know. With him, he had an extremely large buff weasel in full plate mail, about the size of a German shepherd, and a snake with, instead of a head, it had a hand with an eye set in the palm. He said he had to report the group to Medusa, saying that they were in fact trespassers in the maze. However, he would go light on his words if they endeavored to search for his missing sons. Beyond that, as they were leaving, they saw crossing back over some rope bridges that they had previously come across, entering the dungeon. There was off in the distance some very beautiful looking flower men that they ignored and continued on their way, as they were just off to the side and seemed negligible. The group returning to the town of Zotza, they basically did, it was just some light shopping, I believe, and they went all over. They went back to the tavern, listened into people talking, Merzin and Torch listening into a couple, a strange group, brother and sister, who were trying to hunt a giant that had slayed their father, and which he found out by listening into it. And Merzin tried to make a move on a halfling woman sitting at the bar, who declined him, and then Torch later put the moves on her for the sole purpose of annoying Merzin, which didn't seem to faze him. Or he didn't let off that it fazed him. They also journeyed north through the chapel district, where all the religions lay, entering the Hellhound's Mercery, the juxtaposing fabric and clothes store, where Bridie bought a full outfit resembling that of Denu culture, and Torch buying a full 3-piece suit, I believe it was. Or was it 3 or 2-piece?
Yeah, 3-piece.
Of a deep, almost red skin burgundy purple is a way to describe it. And Baron getting himself a top hat and bow tie. Journeying further, they heard some commotion in the next street over and found out the church of the castle, where a group of older citizens of the town of Zotza worship the large ever-growing castle in the center of the city, which the group now know it resides the master craftsman Zotza, and celebrating an old man which was going to be transported to the castle that day. Merzin, trying to gain the attention of the high priest, was shrugged aside as he continued on his way through rallying the older folk that worshipped the church. Journeying further north again, they came to while further north in town, they returned to the brass tome, the magic store, with the small, scarred, very, very, very bookish, bird-like man, who was this time complaining about something else other than his Pindic, which he was rambling about last time. Although Merzin, entering disguised, could not ascertain to what it was this time around. However, the group Baron find looting from one of the Yoku earlier a spell scroll of allowing to turn a puddle into infinite ocean. However,
deep well.
Deep well. He sold the scroll, and for that and some money in exchange for a magical spear sold by the store by the name of Tony, which upon hit the target hit must make a wisdom saving throw of 15 or be frightened, and then which will remain frightened until Tony manages to calm them down with a DC 15 charisma check. Afterwards, they all returned and stayed the night at the tavern, except for Bridie, who went full autist mode, staying up throughout the duration of the night.
It was very autistic.
Searching for spell scrolls. With Byron being a bad GM, looking at the prices listed and think he was putting the lowest prices. Byron then went and put the prices higher. As a result, Bridie not being happy with any of the scrolls she found, as they were all too overpriced. It was then after the next day where Torch convinced Bridie to head to bed, where Merzin and Torch managed to find a number of the scrolls Bridie was looking for a reasonable price, and put down a deposit for her, which she then finished and picked up. I should also forgot to mention, upon entering back into town from the earlier, when they first arrived back into town from the maze beneath the castle, they went to the a storage place where you can both store your items, money, and exchange currency. Where the one working at the teller was this human lady, very pale features, blonde hair, blue eyes, seemingly not from anywhere near here. And despite being a human, only spoke Dwarven but understood other languages. and had a magical lamination machine able to laminate cards and such. Where this was where Bridie and Mazin both bought themselves lockers to store their items. After the shenanigans in the city, they journeyed back into the dungeon, this time venturing northwest rather than northeast, entering a room where a chandelier lay. It was in this room as soon as they entered where Mare, I think it was Mare, fell in the shadow of Merzin in front of him. Things ensued with people falling into any shadows cast in the room, where they begin to, after a amount of time, spread out and ensured that they no longer they were not close enough to fall into each other's shadows, with Valor climbing to the roof and holding the chandelier in place using spider climb. They then journeyed west from this room and found their way into a garden where the entire look of the place, rather than torch-lit interiors and clean stonework, it is instead a heavy mangled growth of trees with the heavy smell of rot and decay, but also growth, and the trees' leaves looking and feeling papery, yet still very much alive, and or only light coming from strange illuminating rectangles on the ceiling. Journeying into this room, they saw a number of statues made from soapstone with vines growing in and throughout them. They then journeyed south of the room, finding a small clearing where prior to this, west of the room, they found a shed. The shed, which contained anything you could ever want from a shed. Baron deciding to pick up 10 bear traps because, well, bear traps, you can find bear traps in a shed, and he just kept looking and just kept finding bear traps because you could find, anything you could ever want in the shed. And among that, I believe Merzin also took some pesticide. But beyond that, I don't think anyone took anything else.
No, Brody told everyone to get machetes, but no one took any.
Yes, Brady and I think it was Torch took a machete. However, journeying, passing by the west wall beyond the shed, there was also another archway going into a further western room, which resembled the same kind of heavy shrubbery and trees throughout the room. Although they saw in there was more vines, so journeying south, they found a clearing with what seemed to be just a seat carved from natural stone sitting in the center of the room. There was a door to the south and east with a archway leading to the west and north. The north one, they just come through to this southern room. The group then explored the southern room, finding out that it was a living quarters for some sort of gardener that was once here, with his long dead skeleton laying there, still in his farmer's clothes, with his in his ragged, disheveled home. Searching the body of the skeleton, Torch found some silver. Other than that, there was nothing of remark that was in the room. They then journeyed up and east from the clearing, entering a room with completely collapsed bookshelves. After some time and all entering the room, the shelves seemed to move and expand. Varlock, getting close, was attacked by a large boar. After being hearing whispers of sorts, ushering him to come closer.
Did 60 fucking damage, cunt.
Yes, the boar doing 60 damage in a single hit. The large boar was actually known as the id pig, a pig that's damage and strength and stats scale based on the distance between people's intelligence and wisdom. However, they dispatched of the id pig fairly quickly and then journeyed through the archway heading west, where they encountered Germander, a gigantic greyish pink worm. This room described as the vines cut short and neatly kept, with a beautiful grass lawn also trimmed, and flower beds around the room. There was a curved wall to the north of the room with two doors on it, covered in a thick goop, popping ever so slightly, where it was where Germander, the giant pink worm with a slightly uncanny valley face, you can all see the picture that is a very accurate picture of Germander in the Byron Game channel. Germander speaking in the most fucked up voice possible I could muster, talk to the group, mostly talking nonsense, although revealing that the Oku work for a witch called Alfred, and that music could possibly be found, which Torch was looking for, and I forgot to tell you about because I'm bad. But yeah, that music in the gallery, it could be found north of where they were. Previously, upon entering, which I forgot to mention, they re-encountered the half-dragon woman, pacing back and forth, talking about aesthetics and wanting to get certain things to achieve certain goals from within the maze. However, she could not go through and take a hold of these items herself, as she was deeply afraid she would completely destroy the maze and ruin the aesthetic, instead choosing to hire the group. Although not telling them anything, as that would ruin the aesthetic of the group and their lack of knowledge, searching through the maze, as she put it. Torch taking upon the duty, and thus being hired in her eyes to find what music, and have him bring it to her and talk her through its provenance. Anyway, after speaking to Germander, he warns them not to enter through the doors to north, as they are dangerous. And after trying to plead Germander to stay with them and help them out, Germander leaves, not willing to do so. Bridie then shooting a firebolt at the gooey doors, causing them a loud pop, which echoed throughout the rooms. They entered this room, and what they found was a large heart taking up most of the room, a large green pulsing heart. From the heart slithered down three beasts made from vines. One just a traditional vine, while the other two having different, one with black flowers covering its body, and the other with red flowers. They begin to lash out with insults and accusations. First against Torch, declaring that he was a failure, leaving poor innocent children behind in the town, seemingly knowing about their previous adventures. And not only that, but he left his town behind to allow them to be taken by the brigade, the group of goblins that were taking children in the name of the Freet, which is Torch's father. However, Torch did not give in to what they were saying, and the second vine beast then directed its attention to Merzin, where it began to talk of how he was a terrible, terrible person. He's a liar, a cheater, a murderer, and a thief. And that he, as he seemed to, make all these accusations, Merzin agreed to what he was saying, and the creature had a huge smile come across its face, declaring that yes, that they agree, and as such the heart began to burst, filling the room with a greeny red blood, which began to filter out the eastern door which they had entered. Combat then began between the three and the vine beasts. In the middle of the fray, three screaming Oku, the men dressed with bird cloaks and long beaked hoods. I should also mention in that first encounter, Torch took one of the hoods of the Oku, and getting it inspected earlier, revealed that it had a curse on it, that the longer you wear it, the more mad you go, believing that you truly are a bird. However, after going completely mad, you gain one of the blessings of the Raven Queen, gaining a specific spell that you can cast once a day at will and as a free action. The a big price to pay for such a small reward. The group are fighting the vine beasts, fearing that the room would fill up with the blood as it continued to spill out the heart, attacking the vine beast, killing one of the three of them. They ran to the northern door, opening it as the Oku ran to the southern door, screaming, opening that up, and allowing the blood to flow out the southern door. With the group opening up the northern door, the blood flooded into a small room with two other exits, pushing open the door to the west into a courtyard where there was a giant demon toad that Germander the Pink Worm had spoken of. The group found themselves inside this tight room, closing the door behind the vine beasts, and then running into the eastern room, closing the door between them and the giant toad demon. Closing the door behind them through the eastern door, they heard crashes of the wall that the toad was coming towards, and a second crash breaking into the heart room. They journeyed further east, and realizing that this was the unexplored room that seemed like more of a forested area with the thick vines in the middle. Journeying into the middle of the vine room, the vines displayed faces of an unknown woman, and began to reach forward to kiss the party members. That they decided to avoid these acts of compassion.
So
continued on their way.
Was it multiple faces of different women, or just one woman?
They were all the same face. All the same face.
Okay.
But, multiple faces of the same woman. Merzin, sneaking up to the door where they suspected the demon toad to lay, opening up and peeking, rolling extremely high stealth checks, saw the toad with the back to the door, swallowing the vine beasts. He then snuck through to the room that the toad had come from, witnessing what appeared to be a number of different movable pipes with water flowing out of them. to the west there was an archway, and to the northwest a door, and then to the far north a water wheel that he ascertains he may be able to squeeze underneath. The rest of the group following suit, with Bridie casting major image of her and Thyson running in front of the toad to gain its distraction, and then sneaking past, prior to which the toad had been simply sitting there laughing for an unknown reason. Deciding to enter the northwest door, the group found what was a makeshift wedding amongst the gardened section of the maze, where there was a tuberous plant-like being at the top, acting as priest at this makeshift wedding. Sorry, did I say funeral before? I think wedding, with the pews filled with strange wicker men, men made of sticks and twine, with inside each of their heads was a dead dove, and the floor covered with what could only be described as a very vague confetti made from different leaves and sticks. Upon seeing them enter, the tuberous plant man gestured them towards him and approached them at haste, examining first Thyson's hand, and then Merzin putting his hand forward next, and him examining Merzin's hand. He then brought them up to the stand to be married, where he began to chant this deep ritualistic chant, and from the west door of the room they heard screams of "Please kill him," at which after a brief moment, Merzin, sticking a dagger in his face and we're killing him in a single hit. The party approaching the west door, the only other exit other than the one that they came through, opened it up to find a number of Cronenberg-style different creatures fused together. And these weren't just any normal creatures, so there was strange, from humans to strange lizard mummies, and then there was even a swarm of insects fused in with different creatures, and even a giant chest piece, matching the one that the party had seen earlier from the previous sessions. All fused together in a number of different ways, some connected with a silver wire stitched, while others just straight up meshed, and some others jammed together like bad origami. They ascertained that this would be their fate if they allowed the marriage to be completed. The fused people are asking to be put out of their misery. The group endeavoring to journey further north towards the gallery where Germander had pointed them in this room having a north and south exit. The group heading north entered a room with a large rose. The rose with yellow petals, being able to see faintly in the air pollen. Also, approaching the rose, Torch first was made to make a Constitution saving throw, which he failed. Inhaling this pollen, instantly realizing that I can climb the spines, the thorns on the rose, up to the rose top. Attempting to climb up, Baron approached, and surprisingly enough, the pollen having an effect on him. as well. However, he began to shrug it off and attempted to climb the rose, grabbing Torch and jumping off the rose onto his back. Holding Torch at bay until the effect wore off. Brady approached this giant rose to inspect its the nature of it, holding her breath in the process so as not to be affected by the pollen. However, failing her nature check on the flower, as proposed by Ryan, the player, resulted in her losing her breath, needing to breathe in, and thus inhaling the pollen, which resulted in me giving him the inspiration. However, inhaling the pollen was then followed by a natural 20 Constitution save, so the pollen did not affect. Noticing now that what they hadn't previously seen, distracted by the enormous rose, was in the back right, to the right of the door, whether they had hinted on the east wall, vines climbing up into a hole in the southeast corner of the room. Climbing up the vines, the group met with some 6 strange chameleon women, dressed in traditional garb. They were like lizard folk, but yes, with characteristics matching that more of chameleons. The women gestured them to move, to continue on their way, not disturbing them in any way, seemingly returning their gaze back to the rose that they had been watching, allowing the group just to pass what they dented was a vineway, a path of vines in the roof of this dungeon, dug by an unknown source. Following the vine pathway in this tunnel of dirt, a amount of time passed when from the walls launched Germander, going at about I think it was 80 feet a second, maybe. Extremely quick. He was zooming. Germander was the pinky grey worm was indeed zooming. The group continuing the path leading far southeast, almost in the complete opposite direction that they were trying to hope, with the gallery seemingly being in the northwest part of the maze, coming out into a room covered in vines, all connected to the vine pathway. The group saw a door going east, west, and south. Deciding to go through the east door, they came across a set of bamboo scaffolding, 2 bamboo scaffolding poles going from west to east, and a single one going from north to south, beneath which the scaffolding fell into an infinite night sky. Across which they could see only on the other side was simple planks of wood, and further that between an archway that went into the next room, which below was again infinite night sky. Torch, worried, ties a rope around himself and gives it to the party members. The room is only, from where they're standing to the other side, it's only roughly 20 feet across, with the bamboo pole going from north to south at the 10-foot mark. Torch slowly going across with the rope at his waist. Merzin then begins to hastily cross behind him, failing his acrobatics check as he was not passing, slowly fell, grasping onto the rope, which Torch and Baron, holding onto it, it managed to pull him back up onto the scaffolding. Then he began to progress slowly. Over the next few minutes, everybody in the group, except for Thyson and Baron, managed to cross the scaffolding. It was at this point that Baron, continuing to hold the other end of the rope, and Torch, undoing his rope earlier, Thyson began to cross the scaffolding, controlled by Ryan. Then, which he decided not to go slowly across. Thyson, failing his acrobatics check, slipped and was then holding onto the rope, which either end held by Baron by himself on one side and Torch and the rest of the group on the other. Torch continuing to succeed on his and the group continuing to succeed on their athletics checks. Baron not so much, attempts to let go as he begins to fail, and then fail his Constitution saving throw to manage to keep hold. Attempts to let go quick enough, but because of the failed Constitution, is already slipping into the hole. So and then with a failed Dex saving throw, does slip as the rope is then swung at high speeds against the halfway point bamboo scaffolding. So 10 foot away from them horizontally, and then a 40-foot drop down. The two were hanging by this rope of torches. The group, bit by bit, attempting to pull them back up onto the thing, Merzin failing very quickly and instantly letting go of his part of the rope. With Bridie failing and then following suit, you get becoming exhausted with her failed Constitution check afterwards. However, with a certain number of pulling, Thyson, who was higher up the rope as he had already been halfway across, managed to get pulled up onto the scaffolding. And crossed his blade back across the bamboo, the bamboo, and grabbed onto the rope right as Torch failed his Constitution check, the rope slipping from his hands. Thyson grabbing onto it, attempting to pull up Baron in failing his athletics check and then his Constitution check to maintain hold. The rope slips out of Thyson's hand, utterly exhausted. Baron then begins to fall into the infinite, the infinite stars, and that's when we ended the session.